If you have already watched this introductory information, you can skip ahead no more than 10 minutes. Hello, welcome. I am predicting that Vice President Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in St. Louis due to a bird strike into Busch Stadium. In the area code 314, it will be a burning bush, as described in Exodus 3:14, on November 27, 2024. She will be replaced by Michelle Obama, and then Barack Obama will replace Michelle. I am predicting that singer-songwriter Paul Simon will die on November 8th, 2024. I am predicting that former President Jimmy Carter will die on November 17th. It is predicted that President Trump will die from a heart attack on December 12th, 2024. It is also predicted that Trump's heart attack will be triggered by a directed energy weapon that will target Trump through Bluetooth technology. The components inside the pointy thing that Trump took will facilitate this, and it is believed that when Barack Obama is sitting next to Trump at Jimmy Carter's funeral, Obama will obtain Trump's Bluetooth MAC address, which will be used to target Trump with a directed energy weapon. I am predicting that dirty bombs will explode in Manhattan, New York City, and there will be a large-scale evacuation on December 16th. I am predicting that Israel will bomb Iran on December 17th. Israel will nuke and completely destroy Damascus, Syria on December 26th, 2024. It is predicted that after Kamala Harris's death in a plane crash, Joe Biden will appoint Michelle Obama as his vice president. On December 17th, the Democrat Party will use their electoral votes to make Michelle Obama the president-elect. It is predicted that on either December 22nd or 25th, Joe Biden will suffer a stroke. It is predicted that on December 26th, 2024, Joe Biden will step down and Vice President Michelle Obama will become the 47th president. It is predicted that on December 26th, Michelle Obama will appoint Barack Obama as the 51st vice president. On January 12th, 2025, Michelle Obama will step down and Barack Obama will become the 48th president. His public inauguration ceremony will be on January 20th, 2025. It is predicted that on April 20th, 2025, there will be an outbreak of monkeypox or Marburg disease or both. April 20th will be a symbolic beginning to a new pandemic. June 8th, 2025, the true Feast of Pentecost in the calendar that watches for new moons, will be the day of the resurrection rapture event. It is predicted that on June 9th, the day after the rapture, the key will open the bottomless pit and fallen angels will cross over into the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the fifth trumpet judgment that is described in Revelation chapter 9, when the demonic realm collides with the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to demons pretending to be aliens, and it is possible that June 9th will be the day Pope Francis will announce that aliens have arrived and have made him the ambassador for the world. This will immediately give Pope Francis, the Antichrist, supreme power over governments of the world. At some point, there will be a massive Mary apparition that will deceive the masses, because all Mary apparitions in history have been demons pretending to be Mary. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to a zombie pandemic and the masses becoming demonically possessed that will be facilitated through the thing, which is the mark of the Antichrist, and 5G frequencies. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the coming genocide politicide in America. It is predicted that on August 6th, 2025, the historic barge that has been stuck on the rocks of the Niagara River for over 100 years will finally break free and crash over Niagara Falls. The reason for this is that Niagara Falls is Noah's flood symbolism, and the barge was involved in the most dramatic rescue in the history of Niagara Falls, symbolic of Noah's Ark. Niagara in the native language means straight, narrow way, and Niagara's Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the CN Tower in downtown Toronto, because Toronto and its tower are symbolic of the Tower of Babel. In a game of horseshoes, the object is to aim the horseshoe and throw it at the metal stick, which is why the Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the metal stick that is the CN Tower. God is communicating that as testament for those who will live in the 1,000 years of Christ's reign on earth, the geography of North America will, as a result of a massive earthquake, be divided by a body of water from the Great Lakes to the Mississippi Delta. This destruction will be judgment on America and Canada for attempting to divide God's land, Israel. When this happens, the water in the Great Lakes will spill out over southern Ontario and Toronto. I am predicting that a solar flare will erupt on the surface of the sun and send a coronal mass ejection that will hit Earth on August 13th, 2025, which will knock out America's power grid and will lead to food shortages. The hit of the coronal mass ejection, predicted for August 13th, that will knock out the power grid will also knock many planes out of the sky. I am predicting that on August 23rd, 2025, there will be a catastrophic asteroid hit of Earth, which will trigger the eruption of Yellowstone volcano and will cause the volcano in the Canary Islands to collapse into the Atlantic Ocean and send a mega tsunami towards the east coast. The asteroid will also trigger a mega landslide on Hawaii Island that will trigger a mega tsunami that will hit the west coast. It will also trigger the collapse of the Hoover Dam, which will cause a water panic in California, and many other devastating earthquakes. The day of the Lord, the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ, Judgment Day, will be on the Day of Atonement, October 1st, 2025. The date that this video is posted proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time, as do these time-stamped emails and forensic notes PDF documents. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived, and more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Make a note right now of these alternative platforms that you can find me on, in case you can't find me later. All right, it is now after October 30th, and like I will explain, we expected signs on this date to reveal adding 5 days. In this Game 5, it was in fact the last game of the World Series as it was thought it might be. And anyway, that confirmed the 5 days, and that got us to this date, November 4th. And the signs on this date confirmed all of the analysis, which will be explained in the Jimmy Carter videos. This was the day of the death of the King of Music, Quincy Jones. And that revealed adding 13 days to get the date. It is predicted that Jimmy Carter will die on November 17th. It is amazing, but it will be explained in the Jimmy Carter videos. All right, welcome to this video that will be explaining this truly profound diagram. So much information needs to be told here regarding what is about to take place during this World Series and what it all means. And it'll only be here that you learn the true meaning and purpose of God's behind this 2024 World Series matchup between the New York Yankees and Los Angeles Dodgers. In fact, you need to watch more than this video to appreciate everything that God is doing regarding these two teams. And there are other videos that will explain more information, but this will be a very big, important part of this, specifically this particular World Series. And what I mean by that is there are other things that God has been doing, for example, for the Los Angeles Dodgers this year that are extremely important. But what I am specifically will be speaking about are the connections to this October 30th date, 2024, which will be Game 5 of this World Series. It will be played in New York City. Now, this date prior to today was thought to be the date it would be predicted that Paul Simon would die. Today is October 25th. It is in the morning North American time. Game 1 yet has not been played. That'll be later this evening. And it was known prior to the playoffs that the Yankees and Dodgers would be in this World Series. That was predicted ahead of time. Now what I am predicting is that, well, first of all, let me just finish what I was saying. October 30th was known to be a date that God is pointing to overwhelmingly for the coming death of Paul Simon, the singer-songwriter. And that will be a massive, massive understatement to say massive, prophetic sign. The timing of his death will point to Revelation chapter 8:1 and the period of silence that John heard in heaven before the trumpet judgment destruction, before the destruction began with the 7 trumpets. The 7 trumpets of judgment, which is why Paul Simon's most recent album is titled 7 Psalms, and why his first hit that catapulted his career was Sound of Silence. The timing of Paul Simon's death will be symbolic of the sound of silence that precedes a brief period of calm that precedes the judgment and destruction of America. And that is predicted to now be on November 8th, which in fact the date itself is symbolic of Revelation 8:1. we actually saw God do this in August with the dates August 10th and August 11th. The sign on that date ran into both dates. It was at midnight Paris time. It was in the Olympics, but I've explained that in another video. So, all right, so October 30th, as I will explain, does connect with 9 days and 4 plus 5 days, or 4 plus 5 days if you will, to the date it is predicted that Paul Simon will die, and I will explain why this is relevant. And one of the big reasons why this 9 days will be relevant is this prediction for what will happen on October 30th in Game 5. Something very prophetic is going to involve player number 99, Aaron Judge. God has been using Aaron Judge for quite a while. This will by far not be the only prophetic sign involving Aaron Judge, player number 99. For example, this date, October 30th, is exactly 99 weeks after this Aaron Judge, player number 99, prophetic sign. And this date also was known ahead of time. It was known ahead of time. God was pointing to this for the coming dirty bomb explosions in Manhattan. God has been communicating this for a number of years, and the trail of signs led to December 7th, 2022, and this was recognized ahead of time. And one reason being was that December 7th, 2022 was exactly 9 times 9 years after this date, which was December 7th, 1941. Okay, from the Bible, the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment, and this is why the number 9 is the most important number in God's prophetic signs, his big picture of end times prophetic signs, which is only being explained on this channel. And because the number 9 symbolizes God's judgment, this is why this player, this man named Aaron Judge, if you can believe it, is player number 99. And I say if you can believe it in a sarcastic way because it's all about believing. And it's just kind of tongue-in-cheek because it's just so amazing. It's just like, obviously, this is from God because he's number 99 and his name is Judge. There's more to it, and I'll explain later, but Judge is actually a hint at the first commissioner of baseball, whose name was Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis. Very important. I'll explain that later in this video. I've explained it many other times in other videos as well. The first commissioner of baseball came to power in a moment of crisis after the 1919 World Series cheating scandal by the Chicago Black Sox. And the Antichrist, who will come to power through cheating, is from Chicago. And the first commissioner of baseball was given unchecked power over every person in baseball in this moment of crisis, just like the Antichrist will be given unchecked power over every person in America in a moment of crisis. And the first commissioner of baseball came to power on November 12th to 1920, exactly 666 years, and the number that symbolizes the Antichrist in Bible prophecy is 666. He came to power 666 days exactly after the 6 plus 6 plus 6th Amendment was ratified. The 18th Amendment, which restricted a person's ability to buy and sell food, which is what the Antichrist will do through digital programmable currency. The rationed food will be restricted to only those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist, the so-called good citizens, the responsible citizens, etc. But those that do that are going to hell because they aren't the responsible citizens. They are the complete opposite. It is wicked what has happened and will continue to happen. All right, now getting back to this though, Pearl Harbor Day was when they dropped bombs. That's why 9 times 9 years exactly. One reason was it was expected that this trail of bombs for New York City would be the date that this would happen. We now know that it'll be December 16th, the predicted date for the dirty bombs in Manhattan, which I'll explain this connection in a second. So anyway, December 7th, though, hints at Revelation 12:7, which says that war broke out in heaven. Well, war broke out on December 7th in 1941. And then 9 times 9 years exactly later, and this was known ahead of time, we get a prophetic sign involving Aaron Judge, and that's relevant because he plays for New York. But also, the sign itself confirms the matter, which is what the Bible says is required, second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, which is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination, and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. Okay? And so the sign itself was the contract that player number 99 signed after hitting the most number of home runs ever without using things, steroids. But what are steroids? How are they put inside a person's body? Okay, anyway, now I'm referring to the home run derby in 1998 and that cheating scandal that involved things, which is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist, the pointy thing. Well, anyway, this was the year that he hit the record number of home runs after beating player number 9, New York Yankee Roger Maris. Okay, who, by the way, hit 61 home runs in 61 and beat Babe Ruth, the home run king, who hit 60 home runs in a season. And that year that he hit 61 home runs in 1961 was the year that Barack Obama was born, the Antichrist. 61 is the 18th prime number, and 18 is 6 plus 6 plus 6. Okay, so we have this 9 times 9 years connection, which, by the way, also hints at 9/11, because 81, 9 times 9, is the result of dividing 11 into 9. 9 divided by 11 equals 0.818181 into infinity. So the number 81 symbolizes 9/11, and that's why, for example, on the flight that hit the Twin Towers, the first one had 81 passengers. '81 had 81 passengers, hints at 9 times 9, but 81 also hints at 8 plus 1 equals 9. And on that plane, there was a crew of 11. And this was on 9/11. Okay. And that was in New York. And by the way, 99 is 9 times 11, which is another reason why Aaron Judge wears number 99 and plays for New York. It's symbolic of the follow-up to the judgment destruction that God warned of and promised there would be unless America turned back to God on 9/11 in 2001. Okay, so 9 times 9 years from the bombing of Pearl Harbor gets us to this trail of signs for the bombing in New York that's coming on this date, and then 99 days after this, the player number 99's 9-year contract, which I didn't explain yet. So he signed a 9-year contract for $360 million. 360 million hints at 3 sixes, 666, the number of the Antichrist. Also 36 is 6 times 6, and also 2 times 18, which is 6 plus 6 plus 6, and also the 36th triangular number, the last number in the 36th row of a triangle of numbers is 666, and 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 all the way up to 36 equals 666. So 99 weeks exactly after this is this date, October 30th, that we are expecting, predicting a prophetic sign involving number 99. All right? Now, number 99, Aaron Judge, is a giant. He is a very, very large man. And from what I believe, I think one of his nicknames is the Giant. But I could be wrong about that. All right? But anyway, he is a giant. And in the book of Genesis, the flood judgment came after the giants, symbolic of demons, mixed with humans and corrupted the chromosomes, which is what the thing does. Which is why now that the people's chromosomes have been corrupted through the thing that people took, they need to be wiped out. Just like the flood judgment in Genesis, which came after God warned it would come after a 120-year period. Well, this World Series is the 120th World Series. Now, I don't personally believe that the flood was worldwide. It wasn't over the entire globe. I personally believe, like a lot of other Christians, that it's referring to the flooding in the Black Sea, which prior to the collapse of the land barrier of the Isthmus Strait in Turkey, no. Is that the name of it? Well, anyway, there's that piece of land right next to Istanbul in Turkey that used to be there, but it broke, and then the Mediterranean flooded into the Black Sea. That's why Noah's Ark went into the Ararat Mountains in Turkey, because that's where the flooding was. It wasn't a global flood, and neither does the text imply that it is. Some people think that it's not, that it implies a global flood, but the text doesn't even imply that. But anyway, it was the after a period of 120 years, and this is the 120th World Series. Okay, and okay. So what will player number 99 do that will be relevant? Well, somehow I do believe that what he will do, what God will have him do, will be prophetic. And I believe strongly that what will happen is that it will point back to the Yankees-Dodgers World Series in 1977. Okay? This will be Game 5, and this World Series was known for Reggie Jackson's 5 home runs. Okay? So, I think what's possible is that Aaron Judge will hit 5 home runs. I mean, he is a home run hitter. So, quite likely, it will match Reggie Jackson through hitting home runs. And well, here's a couple of things. One is that if you take Reggie Jackson wore number 44 because the Antichrist is the 44th president. And when we take the number 99 and 44 and subtract them, we get 55. That's extremely relevant for so many reasons. First of all, in the Bible, the most evil king ruled for 55 years. That's what the text says. The most evil king ruled for 55 years. So this is symbolic of the Antichrist. The most evil king in American history will be Barack Obama, or is Barack Obama. Okay, also, it's Game 5 we are talking about, and also we are talking about a connection to Reggie Jackson, who hit 5 home runs. Also, 5 days after this is the predicted date of Jimmy Carter's death on November 4th. I forgot to write that into the diagram. Okay, and Paul Simon, as explained in other videos, is associated with the number 5. And the reason why this date was known ahead of time is because of the Paul Simon connections. I mean, for example, Paul Simon sang in center field of Yankee Stadium, Mrs. Robinson, exactly 1,335 weeks before October 30th. And this Game 5 in Yankee Stadium. That's amazing. This is an extremely prophetic number. It is the last number, and it is a period of time in the prophecy, the last number in the prophecy of the last chapter of the book of Daniel. This number symbolizes the end of the age. It also follows a period from the setting up of the abomination. And the spiritual abomination is the mark of the Antichrist. The thing, the pointy thing. And you know what I'm talking about, the thing that you can't talk about. It is the mark of the Antichrist in its current form. It does not need an additional something to go with it, such as an additional technology or false form of religious worship. In fact, those that are wise will recognize that that has been happening. It has been a false form of religious worship. And it does not need a supposed new age of dispensation after supposedly all quote-unquote Christians will be raptured. In fact, one of the main reasons why the vast majority of quote-unquote Christians have already taken the mark of the Antichrist is that it is judgment from God for this particular doctrine that Jesus said he hates and is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine. I'm talking about specifically free grace, which comes in the package of dispensationalism, but also Calvinism, which comes in the sovereign grace, which comes in the package of Calvinism. Both of these lead to once saved, always saved. Let's cut to the chase. Most people don't give a hoot about doctrine and don't care to learn anything about it. They just love Jesus, but the knowledge of God deepens one's love for God and Jesus. But anyway, I'll just get to the point and pick a fight with the evangelicals because this applies to all denominations which Jesus hates, all 45,000 of them, because all of them are a result of the Nicolaitans, the people that teach the doctrine and the works that Jesus said he hates. And the word Nicolaitan means in Greek ruling over the laity, and it is the pastors, preachers, pastors, bishops, priests, reverends, popes that are the Nicolaitans, but not only them, they're sycophant followers as well. And this preaching for money and the moneyed church is what has institutionalized these errors, which is why Jesus forbid preaching for money. The passages that pastors use to support them preaching for money are twisted out of context, leave out the verse prior to it, for example, and if it's read carefully, it's very clear. It's, if anything, preaching for food, but Jesus forbid preaching for money. And there's a reason for it. It's because he knew all of this nonsense, such as Jehovah's Witness, Catholicism, and evangelicalism. And what I mean by that is what I'm getting at, their doctrine, are a result of this thing that Jesus forbid. And he also forbid having teachers. In fact, the first warning he gave to the disciples in the Olivet Discourse was to beware of the ones that come claiming to be Christ. Did he mean those that come to be claiming Lord Jesus Christ? No. Christ is Greek, which means Messiah in Hebrew, which means anointed one, and there are other instances of anointed one in the Bible that do not refer to Lord Jesus Christ. Furthermore, anyone who has come claiming to be Lord Jesus Christ has not led many people astray, as it says in the text. They have been regarded as being people in poor mental health and have not led many people astray. Yet Jesus said, many will come claiming to be Christ and lead many people astray. Obviously, he was referring to pastors, priests, bishops, and the Nicolaitan of Nicolaitans, the Pope. All right? And the evangelicals set up the way that people assemble in churches in rows and listening to a performer stand on the stage for 45 minutes to an hour was inherited from Catholicism and popes. And Paul said, if someone is inspired to say a word after someone is speaking, let the person who is speaking be silent. When have you ever seen that in a church? If someone were to do so while a quote-unquote pastor was speaking, they would be immediately escorted out of the church and probably asked to never return. Because the pastors have a monopoly, dictatorship, literally, I mean that literally. It's a socialist dictatorship on information. And people who claim to be in the freedom movement and are against censorship, etc., and go to church and have a pastor, they are hypocrites. Pastors cut off the body of Christ, and they are what Jesus hates. and is coming to make war on, including those that follow him. Now, to the specific doctrine, let's cut to the chase. What we need to talk about here is how people, so the wicked deception, I'll just give you an illustration. The wicked deception in Jehovah's Witness is that this cunning deception that has fooled this denomination, which is mostly made up of older single women, because women are more susceptible to falling into a cult in general. That's just a fact. Studies show that too. And this cult believes that participating in the society and the culture is actually the mark of the Antichrist. So Satan has done a beautiful job. He's rendered these Christians basically worthless. And Jesus said, if one loses their salt, a Christian loses their salt, they are then good for nothing and except to be trampled under the feet of men. That's Jehovah's Witnesses for you in a nutshell. They don't vote. They don't do anything to better the society. They look at that and see that as being the mark of the Antichrist, if they do anything like that. In other words, fight for righteousness and their society that they live in. Okay? So Satan has rendered them, has neutralized them with wicked deception. All right? There's more to be said regarding the deception of Jehovah's Witnesses, of course, but this is the main one. But the same thing applies to evangelicals because of their once saved, always saved doctrine and things like, I'm just a sinner, saved by grace, etc. This twisting of the writings of Paul that Peter warned of in his last warning, in his last epistle. Beware of those who twist the writings of Paul to their own destruction. Well, that is exactly what has happened. Calvinism and sovereign grace, monergism is, monergism. Yes, monergism as opposed to synergism. I'm just getting technical, but what it means is that basically the vast majority of evangelicals are living just like Catholics and whatever. At least Jehovah's Witnesses do some things. They stand beside their books for hours and hours, but on the street. But to their credit, at least they are doing something. But their denomination is wicked deception. But then again, so is the evangelical denomination. So when they're bringing in people into their church, just like the Jehovah's Witnesses do, are they doing it much better? Well, no, because they're preaching this wicked deception from Satan, which is that one is saved through having the correct, precise doctrine intellectually, knowledge, which is Gnosticism. That's the definition of Gnosticism. John called these Gnostics antichrists, and that's who they are today. Those that are squirming right now with this talk about this criticism of this doctrine of because the thing is that the reason why evangelicals have a phobia regarding doing any work and works for the Lord is because they believe that it's dangerous. They actually believe that if they start believing that they need to do some work for their salvation, they will lose their salvation. That's wicked deception from Satan. It's just rendering them neutral, just like the Jehovah's Witness deception from Satan. Read the teachings of Jesus. One needs to produce fruit, for example, as he said. Otherwise, and he's talking to Christians when he says this, they will be thrown into the fire. And now I have said enough. I have said enough. If you are a Christian, make sure you read the links in the description box below, the website, and also, arguably the most important video on this channel, watch the 23 church signs video. All right, now, where I got off track here was talking about the mark of the Antichrist and this connection right here. Okay? Now, the thing is that I know far better than you the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction, the reason for this prediction, these predictions that are from God. And it is to prove what I have just said, these controversial things. That is the purpose. Okay, make no mistake. And so back to disconnection. This is the day that Paul Simon sang Mrs. Robinson in center field of Yankee Stadium. And it is 1,335 weeks exactly to this October 30th date and Game 5 in Yankee Stadium of this World Series. I just explained why this is so important. Now, Paul Simon was in the stadium singing because Joe DiMaggio had just died, and in Paul Simon's song, Mrs. Robinson, there is a lyric about Joe DiMaggio. And Paul Simon is known for being an avid New York Yankees baseball fan. So he sang in center field, and it is predicted that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash into center field of the baseball stadium in downtown St. Louis, where the Cardinals play. Her plane will be hit by a bird, which is why the Cardinals play there. Okay, so that's what all this is ultimately hinting at here. She will be replaced by Michelle Robinson Obama. Okay, now Joe DiMaggio wore jersey number 5. So we have this connection to Game 5 regarding Joe DiMaggio. And then it is again another 5 days to the predicted death of Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter's death is prophetic, one reason because of the use of Jimmy Carter in God's signs for symbolism for Methuselah in the Bible. Methuselah was Noah's grandfather, and he died at the time of the flood judgment. And the name Methuselah means when he dies, destruction. So that's the prophetic significance of the timing of both of Simon and Carter's death. Again, Simon's death will be pointing to Revelation 8:1 and the brief period of silence before the judgment destruction. And likewise, Jimmy Carter is symbolic of this same thing. And that's why their deaths will be 4 days apart. Jimmy Carter will die in the 4th state to join the Union. Okay, and it is predicted that the day that Paul Simon will die will be the day of the funeral of Jimmy Carter, which is interesting because there are connections between Paul Simon and Jimmy Carter. And for example, Paul Simon sang one day before the inauguration of Jimmy Carter at the pre-inaugural ball. And he sang American Tune, symbolic of America. Okay. Here's another quick one here. This World Series will be 69 years after the 1955 World Series. So this Game 5 that will be prophetic, is predicted to be prophetic, will be 69 years after the 55 World Series. Oh, and Paul Simon sang about traveling to the Graceland Mansion, which is on the he would have been in the song. It says he's traveling down the highway. I think I forget if he says he's traveling or driving down the highway, but that highway that connects to Memphis from either north or south is the I-55. And I'm sure that's the highway he would have been driving on. Probably he came from New Orleans. Okay, and also the King's Palace, the King of Rock's mansion is symbolic of the King of Egypt and his palace. And Memphis, Tennessee is named after Memphis, Egypt, and it is located in the area of the country nicknamed Little Egypt. And St. Louis is nearby, and that's another reason why Kamala Harris will die in St. Louis. So, and the I-55 connects Memphis, Tennessee to St. Louis, which then goes on to connect to Chicago, the home of the Antichrist. And again, the most wicked king in Israel's history ruled for 55 years. I just touched on how it's believed that Paul Simon will die on the day of Carter's funeral, and so we might as well go here. It's predicted that Barack Obama, okay, so Jimmy Carter's funeral will be prophetic, extremely prophetic, because and here is the big thing here, and why, one big reason for the 1977 World Series, because Jimmy Carter was inaugurated in 77. And this began a series of kings, 7 kings, that parallel the prophecy in the book of Revelation regarding 7 kings. Okay, Rome was founded on or after 7 kings. In 509 BC, there was a period of these 7 kings, okay, and it ended in 509 BC, which hints at 59, and 59 is the 7th super prime number. This is, in other words, designed by God. The 7 kings that preceded the founding of Rome. Okay, the Republic of Rome. Now, so the prophecy is about a series of 7 kings, though, not the 7 kings of ancient before Rome, but it's a prophecy therefore it's in the future. And the secondary fulfillment of this is what I'm describing now. The primary fulfillment is Rome. All right? That's another subject. But the secondary fulfillment, because God does this, he uses all kinds of overlapping symbolism and fulfillments for prophecies. Now, the secondary fulfillment is pointing to the second of the 2 antichrists. In Bible prophecy, there are 2 antichrists. The first is Pope Francis, and the second is Barack Obama. Now, Barack Obama, in this prophecy, it says that the 8th king was, is not, and will be again. All right? So Barack Obama, at the time of the funeral, will have been a president, and at the funeral, the presidents will line up in chronological order on the pew. It will be pointing to the series of chronological kings in the prophecy. And Barack Obama, at that moment, will have been a president, is not the president, and will again be the president. So he is symbolically the 8th king in this prophecy. Carter's inauguration in 77 began this series of 7 presidents that parallel this prophecy. The 7th president is Trump, who, like Carter, was inaugurated in a year ending in 7. On that day, Trump was 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old. It was also exactly 77 days before Trump launched 59 missiles into the Middle East, and 59 is the 7th super prime number. And on, actually, okay? So, now, Barack Obama, in other words, in this parallel, will be the 6th king and the 8th king. Well, in simple English gematria, the name Barack Obama is equal to 68. That's why. Okay. Okay, so now that I've explained that a little bit, getting back to this date, November 8th, the date it is predicted that Paul Simon will die, and will be the funeral of Jimmy Carter. Again, both of these men being symbolic of the timing of the beginning of judgment destruction for America. Trump will be sitting next to Obama on the pew, the 7th and 6th kings. Okay? And it is believed that it has been revealed through God's prophetic signs so here is the thing. Let me just back up a little bit. Trump and RFK Jr. are the 2 witnesses. Okay, so I'm sure for the Christians that are listening, especially those that are knowledgeable about basic Bible prophecy, you're familiar with the 2 witnesses in Revelation chapter 11. what I am saying is that it was never meant to be that everyone that calls themselves a quote-unquote Christian was going to recognize who the two witnesses were. It's the same as John the Baptist. When Jesus said, for those who have who can see it, John the Baptist was the Elijah that was promised that would come and clear the way for the Lord. But did people in that time recognize that John the Baptist was Elijah? So it's the same with the people that believe that one of the two witnesses will be Elijah. But that's not the case. It's symbolism. The whole book of Revelation is allegory. It's all symbolic, right? And so God has completely revealed that the two witnesses are designed so that they are not recognized by most people. Only those that have the Holy Spirit and are with the Lord and seeking discernment and understanding and watching the signs, will they recognize this? Okay, so bottom line, I'm going to make a video that will explain this much further. I'm not even really explaining anything. And the point here, though, is that what I am saying is true, and the prediction in this video, the purpose of it is to prove what I am saying. Believe me, I know far better than you the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction, the reason for the predictions in this video. It is to prove that the two witnesses are Trump and RFK Jr. By the way, that also means, yes, we are well inside the final 7 years. In fact, this is the end of the 7th year, and there will be an 8th year. That's another thing. The 7 years began in 2017. There's an 8th year. There's a 7 and 8 principle here going on. The 7 years of signs and then the 8th year of judgment destruction, essentially. And I'll explain more of that, of this concept of 7 years followed by an 8th year in a Carter video. Okay? Okay, so they are the two witnesses. Okay, now the prophecy says that the two witnesses will be murdered by the Antichrist or Antichrist system. Barack Obama is a murderer. He has murdered, as far as I'm aware, 2 people. Okay? He murdered the guy that he went to church with in Chicago, who he was having sexual relationship with, and he murdered his chef at his Martha's Vineyard. All right? Anyway, he is a murderer, and when he becomes the Antichrist, will be leading a mass murder, a politicide. Right? There's a coming genocide in America. It's a civil war happening, but it's going to end with a genocide, and then the Lord will return. The people that are responsible for the genocide, they're the ones that are going to be genocided into hell. Okay? But it's the left versus right. It's the blue team versus the red team. It's the blue. I wouldn't call it the red team. It's the blue team versus the other team. Okay? And anyway, so Barack Obama will be leading this totalitarian genocide. And anyway, he's going to murder Trump. What I'm getting at here. Okay? And that will be the result of him acquiring Trump's Bluetooth MAC address on November 8th, when he is sitting next to Trump. That will later be used to murder Trump with a directed energy weapon 54 days later. This is paralleling this 5 days and then 4 days. All right? Also, 54 is 6 times 9, and 6 divided by 9 is 0.666. But the reason why 54 is because of the 54th Massachusetts Regiment that God has revealed in his signs, which is symbolic of oppressive minority law. Because the 54th Massachusetts Regiment, the first black regiment, and we are talking about, by the way, the first black president, and God uses firsts like this to point to this, the first black regiment in the Civil War, speaking of genocide and Civil War, the current one, was unfairly paid. They were not paid the equivalent amount of $13 that the other white northern soldiers were paid. And this was official policy from Washington, D.C. And this $13 is symbolic of the Antichrist, because the number 13 in the Bible is symbolic of the Antichrist. But furthermore, the mark of the Antichrist is described in Revelation chapter 13. Well, what is going to happen is that programmable digital currency, which is the reason why the 54th Massachusetts Regiment story is about money. The programmable digital currency will be used to restrict the buying and selling of rationed food to only those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist. Oppressive minority law. And that's why 54 in his signs, okay? And that's relevant here because this digital programmable currency is part of this Antichrist system that will also be used to track people and target people, all right? And that's what will be happening with Trump. He will be targeted with a directed energy weapon through his Bluetooth MAC address because he took the thing, and people that have taken the thing have inside them components that give off the MAC Bluetooth address, all right? I realize how crazy that sounds, and believe me, you won't believe this, but I actually, in general, am not a conspiracy, what you would call a conspiracy theorist. The only reason why I say anything is because God has revealed it in a clear way in his prophetic signs, and that's why I say what I'm saying. I'm not just speculating. I'm saying what I'm saying, everything in the video, unless I say otherwise, really, that I'm just speculating here. But is information that comes through the prophetic signs. Now, the thing is I can't explain everything all at once. I can't now go into an hour to explain the signs regarding the Bluetooth. Okay, so anyway, let's move on. But that's the case with that's the reason for the 54 days. All right. Now, as I was saying, now we've explained part of the reason for the year 77. Well, this World Series will be 47 years after this World Series in 77, which God will be pointing to again because of Game 5, the connection to Joe DiMaggio, who wore jersey number 5, as I mentioned, up here, okay? There's another connection to Joe DiMaggio here. I might as well just get into it now. Yeah, why not? So this was the day that Joe DiMaggio collided in center field, speaking of Paul Simon singing in center field, with another Hall of Famer, Goose Goslin. Okay, goose hints at a bird. And Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in center field of a baseball stadium after a bird strike. This collision between the two knocked Joe DiMaggio unconscious. Okay, so it's a famous, infamous incident in baseball history. Now, and I believe he had to be carted off the field. Well, Goose Goslin wore number 4, and Joe DiMaggio wore number 5. So a collision between the two gives us a 4 and a 5, and also a 45. Now, I just mentioned how, I forgot to finish this. This 1,335 days in Daniel chapter 12 is 45 days after the other period of time, the 1,290 days, which is, they're both in the last verses of the prophecy. And so in other words, what I'm saying is that this number, 1,335, is in a way symbolic for the number 45, which in itself, because of this, is symbolic of the end, which, by the way, is why Trump was the 45th president. It's because of what I just explained. This 45 days in between these last two periods of time, at the very end of Daniel chapter 12, at the end of the book of Daniel of the book of Daniel. Okay, but now, and that is what connects us to center field with Paul Simon, and he was singing about Joe DiMaggio, and Joe DiMaggio had his famous collision in center field of Yankee Stadium with the player number 4, which gives us a 45. All right? Okay. Now, the inverse of 45 is 0.022. The number 22 is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist. Because the inverse of the mark of the Antichrist, described in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 9, would have been a Tav letter, and a Tav is the last and 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And the mark of the Antichrist is described in the last book of the Bible, the 22nd out of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. Also, 22 is symbolic of the end, the second coming. It's also symbolic of the second presidency of the Antichrist, who will come after the 45th presidency. Okay, so this is a 45 right here, and that confirms this 4 plus 5 days here, as I was talking about, but also this 5 days and 4 days right here, before and after the predicted death of Jimmy Carter. Now, this connection is 32,200 days exactly. That's relevant, as I explained in the other videos, because Joe DiMaggio is associated with Marilyn Monroe, who, the big thing about her is that she died really early, a premature death, and the two movies she starred in have a theme of immortality, and the big lie at the beginning of the age was told by the serpent to Eve in the garden, she surely shall not die, symbolized in Genesis 3:22. And the big lie at the end of the age, when demons pretending to be aliens will promote this transhumanism technology, mark of the Antichrist, and promise immortality. So that's why 32,200 days. Okay? But another connection to Joe DiMaggio. And again, he's number 5. It's game 5. And again, what I'm saying is that this New York Yankee number 99 will point to Reggie Jackson, New York Yankee number 44, who hit 5 home runs, thus giving him the MVP of the World Series in 1977. This connection is 47 years, and this World Series was the 74th World Series. That's amazing, because 74 hints at 47, but it's more than that. Kamala Harris's plane crash will be 4 times 7 days after this date. So in other words, from the 74th World Series, it is 47 years, and then 4 times 7 days to the predicted death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash into a baseball stadium. Also, I was explaining earlier how this Aaron Judge player was a prophetic sign in the trail leading to the predicted dirty bombs and evacuation of Manhattan, which will be 47 days after this Aaron Judge sign right here, which is confirmed with this 47 years connection that Aaron Judge will be used for. So you see what I'm saying there? Now, the thing too, Aaron Judge is a giant. He is symbolic of aliens, demons pretending to be aliens. Because of course there's no such thing as aliens, but the fact that most people in the world today believe in the possibility of aliens because they don't believe in God is the very reason why there will be demons very soon pretending to be aliens. It will be a test of faith for the quote-unquote Christians, because that's the primary purpose of everything, God's church, and to test them. And so those that claim to be quote-unquote Christian and believe in a possibility of aliens are in fact not Christians. The reason being is because Christianity means to believe that God became a man, Jesus, Christ, Christian. And this Christ died for the sins of men. He didn't die on other planets, hopscotching around the universe on crosses, dying for the sins of other alien races. right? It's impossible for there to be aliens if one has a biblical worldview. In the Bible, the center of God's creation, the center of the universe is earth, and man is the center of God's creation. Those that don't have a biblical worldview and don't believe what I just said about man being the center of his creation, etc., they're open-minded to there being aliens. But it's all designed to be deception from Satan. Okay, but that's what Aaron Judge is hinting at, because he is a giant. But that's the reason for these 47 connections, because, get this, from this 74th World Series, then there's 47 years. What is the thing that symbolizes aliens? Roswell. The Roswell conspiracy, which occurred on the date 7/4 in 47, in the 47th state to join the Union. So that's why we have this connection to the giant Aaron Judge. From the 74th World Series with 47 years to the giant, and then we also have more 47s. With these two, and this other connection that's relevant to the giant as well, because of what I explained with the connection with 99 weeks from number 99 back to his 9-year contract, and the 9 times 9 years exactly to the bombing of Pearl Harbor, okay? All right. Okay. So Reggie Jackson in Game 6, that's this date here. October 18th is Game 6, which is when the World Series was won. It was the last game of this 1977 World Series. Okay, the Yankees won the series 4-2. The number 42 in the Bible is always occurring in the context of slaughter and is symbolic of the Antichrist. And there is a slaughter happening with the thing, the mark of the Antichrist, the pointy thing. And as I said, there will be a politicide. Well, okay. Reggie Jackson was the first player to hit 3 home runs in a World Series game in 7 times 7 years. And this was in 77. The home run king, Babe Ruth, hit 3 home runs, and I forgot to include it in the diagram here, in 1928. And 28 is 4 times 7. So from this 4 times 7 year, it's 7 times 7 years to the 77 World Series, which is the 74th World Series, which is 47 years, to this Aaron Judge sign, and then 4 times 7 days to the predicted death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash, which will lead to her replacement with Michelle Robinson Obama, as in Mrs. Robinson, sung by Paul Simon in a baseball stadium. And then Michelle will appoint Barack Obama as her vice president after Joe Biden steps down, and then she will step down and Barack Obama will become the 48th president. Okay, that's why this World Series right here was the last time that a team won the World Series in the same year that their stadium hosted the All-Star Game in the same year. So in 1977, the All-Star Game was in New York in the Yankee Stadium. It was the 48th All-Star Game. The Yankees won their Game 6, the last game of the series, 4-8. The ceremonial first pitch of the All-Star Game was Rachel Robinson. The Yankees won their, and she's the wife of Jackie Robinson, who wore famously number 42, which again symbolizes the Antichrist and slaughter. And the Yankees won their series 4-2 against the LA Dodgers, who Jackie Robinson played for. Okay? Now, Harrison Ford starred in the movie 42 about Jackie Robinson. Harrison Ford played the general manager of the LA Dodgers that integrated the first black player, Jackie Robinson. And he also starred in Star Wars. Now, also in 1977 was the blackout for 9 million people. Okay, and it was 42 years exactly. It was actually 110 minutes shy of an exact 42 years before the Manhattan blackout in 2019. Harrison Ford's Star Wars career spanned 42 years, from 77 until 2019. But the thing is, in 2019, he turned 77 years old. And this was his birthday, July 13th, 2019. On the anniversary of the blackout in 77 in New York was the Manhattan blackout. On the day he turned 77, and that was 42 years ago exactly, and he started the movie 42. Well, the Manhattan blackout occurred at the same time as the Manhattanhenge event, which is twice annual when the sun sets perfectly in between the canyon walls of the skyscrapers. And it's exactly 73 months, which is 3 sets of 7 in the Bible is symbolic of judgment, before the coming predicted solar flare on the sun that will knock out America's power grid. That's another story, though. This connection here, 13 weeks, 6 days, it hints at 136, the 4 times 4th triangular number, which hints at the 44th president. And again, 42 years is symbolic of the Antichrist, the 44th president. All right, well, anyway, back to what I was saying, though, about the connection here with the All-Star game. So we have the prophetic significance of the ceremonial first pitch, which was exactly 13 weeks before this Game 6. And God pairs 23 and 44 because the 44th president was the basketball president who wore jersey 23 in high school. So this 4 times 4 here compares with the Game 6, which is 2 times 3. But the mark of the Antichrist is described in the 13th chapter, and again, the number 13 in the Bible symbolizes the Antichrist. And that's why we have from Carter's inauguration, which began as parallel with the prophecy regarding the Antichrist that I explained earlier, we have exactly 60 plus 60 plus 60 days to this prophetic 48th All-Star game, and the Antichrist, again, will be the 48th president, who will become the president through his wife, Michelle Robinson, which is why Rachel Robinson, on this day of the 48th All-Star game, and why she threw out the ceremonial first pitch exactly 13 weeks before this prophetic All-Star game, which connects ultimately to the plane crash of Kamala Harris, who will then be replaced by Michelle Robinson. Okay, now, the Star Wars connection is relevant because, no, before I go there, let's do it. 146 days is equal to the 50th semi-prime number, and this is following a 5 times 5 times 5 days exact connection. And the number 5 gets us to Game 5, but also more than the 55 significance, like I was saying, being symbolic of Barack Obama and the I-55 that goes through St. Louis and on, this day here is 5G day. It's 5th trumpet day. When the fallen angels, which is why, by the way, the Los Angeles Dodgers, because Los Angeles in God's signs is symbolic of fallen angels, this June 9th, 2025 day will be the day of the collision between the demonic realm and the earthly realm, described in the 5th trumpet. And again, the trumpet judgments follow the sound of silence, Revelation chapter 8:1, which Paul Simon symbolizes. Okay? Now, the coming demonic collision with the earthly realm will lead to mass demonic possession, which will be facilitated through 5G frequencies. Ephesians 2:2 tells us that the prince of the power of the air, there's a phrase in Ephesians 2:2 that Satan is the prince of the power of the air. 5G frequencies are frequencies that move through the air, just as is music, which is the reason why Paul Simon is associated with the number 5. And Paul Simon sang about the Mississippi Delta shining like a national guitar. And let's see. The King's Mansion in Little Egypt in Memphis, Tennessee, by the way, the 4 times 4th state, is symbolic of the abode of the demons that will come through into the earthly realm. And the 5G frequencies will trigger the components that are inside people that have taken the thing, the mark of the Antichrist, the pointy thing. And this will facilitate delta brain waves, or trigger delta brain waves, which will facilitate the mass demonic possession, which is the plot of the movie Shining, which is why Paul Simon sang about going to the Graceland mansion of the king, as in the Antichrist king, or rather King Apollyon in Revelation 9:11. He sang about the Mississippi Delta shining like a national guitar. That's the first lyric of the song, the symbolic first lyric, the incipit, if you know what that is. And so the delta, the Mississippi Delta, hints at delta brain waves, and it's shining like a national guitar hints at the movie The Shining, which is about demonic possession. And Paul Simon dated Shelley Duvall for 3 years before, and is widely known to have broken up with her at the airport, as in portals for demons to come through, before she flew to the UK to film the movie The Shining. Anyway, that's all explained more in other videos. So the point is, though, is that that's why we have these connections here. And Star Wars is about aliens. So that's why it all connects to the 74th World Series, which is 47 years, which hints again at Roswell and aliens, right? The date 7-4 in 47 in the 47th state connects profoundly to Star Wars, which is about aliens, which connects to this inauguration that begins this parallel of a prophecy that points to the Antichrist, which is again why this 60 plus 60 plus 60 days to the 48th All-Star game. So you see how this is, and this one here, it's 271 days, which is the 58th prime number to the World Series Game 6 game here. That's astounding beyond words. It's jaw-dropping when you know that God is using this number 58 in association with Jimmy Carter, because this prophecy is actually also a prophecy about the 5th through 8th kings. There is 7 kings, but there is also a mention of the 5th through 8th kings in this prophecy. This prophecy, by the way, is in Revelation 17:11, and the 1711th triangular number is 58. In a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 58th row is 1711, and the 5th through 8th king's prophecy is in Revelation 17:11. In other words, the Bible is designed by God. But that's why this 58th prime number of days is so astounding here, and it confirms everything. And what I mean is that this is Antichrist. This 77 World Series connects to the inauguration of this president in 77, and that points to the prophecy about the 7 kings, as I explained. Okay, this is amazing. Now, here are some second witness details further into the actual game itself. Now, as I said, Reggie Jackson hit his 5th home run of the series in this game, but he also hit 3 home runs in the game. First time that happened in 7 times 7 years, as I mentioned. But what happened in this game was that he hit 4 home runs, including the prior at-bat the night before, in 8 pitches. So he hit, and 4 of these pitches were a 4-ball walk. In other words, he was intentionally walked. So that's 4 pitches. In other words, he hit 4 home runs in 4 pitches. The first pitch in 4 at-bats in a row, excluding the walk. Okay, 4 home runs in 4 pitches. But either way you look at it, it hints at 48 or 44. And again, the 44th president will become predicted to be the 48th president. And again, this was the last time that the World Series winner won the World Series in the same year that they hosted the All-Star game, which was the 48th All-Star game. And again, this game was won 4-8. Okay? And then Reggie Jackson has 4 home runs in 8 pitches in this game that was won 4-8 in the year of the 48th All-Star game, in which the ceremonial first pitch was Robinson, because Michelle Robinson will appoint Barack Obama, which is why Paul Simon sang in Yankee Stadium, Mrs. Robinson, about Joe DiMaggio, number 5, and on and on. Okay, now, Reggie Jackson got his name Mr. October because of this World Series, and October alludes to the 8th month. That's what octo means, right, in Latin. So 8 is 4 plus 4. The last home run, the 3rd of the game and the 5th in the series, was this massive hit into deep center field. It was a very, very long ball. It was commented on being as such. It was the dramatic home run. It wasn't a light tap over the fence. It was a whopper deep into right center field. Not right center field, sorry, right into center field. In other words, over the fence in the center of center field and then far over the fence. Okay? And that's again because it's pointing to center field, which is where Paul Simon sang Mrs. Robinson. And because of all this, it's predicted that Kamala Harris's crash will not only be into a baseball stadium, but actually center field. Well, anyway, now, this is very interesting. And from God. The ceremonial pitch, the ceremonial pitches in this World Series were the first ever to be thrown from the pitching mound instead of the commissioner's box. So in stadiums, there's a commissioner's box where the commissioner can sit, or some celebrities or something. And it was tradition, like the president, for example, if he were to attend a game and throw out the first pitch, he wouldn't walk onto the field and throw from the pitching mound like they do today. He would have thrown from the commissioner's box. But God uses firsts for his signs, and this was the first one in which the ceremonial first pitch was not thrown from the commissioner's box. This didn't end up, and guess who threw the pitch for this Game 6? Joe DiMaggio. Number 5. New York Yankees, Joe DiMaggio, number 5, when Reggie Jackson hit his 5th home run of the series, a record, and God uses records for his signs, by the way. That's a record, by the way. And again, this is all pointing to Game 5 of this World Series. And again, this Game 5 in this World Series is being pointed to with 2 profound connections from Joe DiMaggio, as I explained. So Joe DiMaggio threw the ceremonial first pitch, but not only that, it was prophetic because it was the first time that this had been done. I don't know if this particular game, but this World Series. Okay, now, this didn't get instituted permanently until 12 years later, in 1989. Well, what was 1989? that was the year of the World Series earthquake, when coincidentally, during the earthquake, the two teams in the World Series just happened to be the two teams in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco Bay Area, where the earthquake was. Now, I grew up in a completely non-religious family, like zero religion. But I knew as a teenager, as a young teenager, that something was up there. That can't be a coincidence. And to this day, I still don't understand how anyone could believe otherwise. Like, it's so obvious. And so this is part of my history that has led to what I'm doing right now with this video, recognizing God's signs. Okay, now this 1989 World Series I've talked about so many times in other videos, but there's a different thing that I want to talk about right now, which is that this World Series was about the 7th commissioner of baseball, who died just prior to the World Series. 4 + 4 days after he banned Pete Rose from baseball, by the way. And he was only the commissioner, but he was commissioner for exactly 5 months. It was exactly 5 months that the flood judgment lasted, by the way. Anyway, there's so much to say about the 7th commissioner of baseball, which I've said before. But what hasn't been said ever in a video of mine before is that the 89 World Series, because I just learned this today, is the first time that was when it was permanently established that ceremonial first pitches were no longer to be thrown from the commissioner's box. And this was the World Series that was about the 7th commissioner of baseball. How so? Well, he died right before it, and he was in office when he died. He was the commissioner at the time that he died, and had been so for only 5 months. But at the beginning of this Game 3, in which the World Series earthquake occurred, James Earl Jones read one of the commissioner's poems about baseball being a homecoming, symbolic of a homecoming. And there's so much to be said about that, and I've said it so many times too, so I won't repeat that either. But I'll just say, that this World Series, and then, by the way, the earthquake happened right after that, right after the poem was read, like literally 4 minutes later. Okay? And, anyway, this arguably is the 7th commissioner of baseball's prophetic sign. And by the way, James Earl Jones was born exactly 7 years and 77 days before the birth of the 7th commissioner of baseball. But ultimately, this was all pointing back to the first commissioner of baseball, which I explained earlier came to power 660 days after the 6 + 6 + 6th Amendment and all that. I explained that earlier. So now this 12 years, though, which, by the way, the first commissioner of baseball came to power 69 years before the commissioner's box was done away with and right after the death of the 7th commissioner of baseball. It's amazing. Oh, and that's relevant because not only does 6 divided by 9 equal 0.666, but in the most central prophecy in the Bible, a period of 69 times 7 years, it precedes the 70th set of 7 years that is symbolic of the period of the end and the Antichrist. And again, this first commissioner of baseball is symbolic of the Antichrist, as I explained earlier. Okay, well, this 12 years is amazing too. One reason, you could say a few things. It's 6 + 6 years. It's 2 times 2 times 3 years, and 223 is the 48th prime number, and the Antichrist is the 48th president, or will be the 48th president. But also, this 12 years hints at the 120th World Series. And as I just explained now, this is all about pointing to the Antichrist, and that's why this is the last World Series, and that's the thing, by the way. The commissioner, by the way, was in power. This commissioner, the 7th, was in office for exactly 5 months. The flood lasted exactly 5 months, and it began after 120 years. And this Game 5 is the 120th World Series, and that means that after this, the flood judgment will begin. That's why it's the 120th World Series, is because the flood judgment began after the 120 years. In fact, it could have been known a long time ago that the end would be after the 120th World Series. Okay. But now you know more reason for the Game 5. It's because of the 5 months that the 7th Commissioner of Baseball was in power, 12 years after the 77 World Series here, when Reggie Jackson hit 5 home runs and the ceremonial first pitch that wasn't thrown from the commissioner's box was pitched by number 5, Joe DiMaggio. Also, home runs, this World Series was about Reggie Jackson and his home runs. Home runs are symbolic of home runs in a World Series, hint at out of this world. In other words, aliens. And these two World Series, 47 years apart, are involving the Los Angeles Dodgers, and that's because of Los Angeles hinting at fallen angels and aliens. And again, Aaron Judge, number 99, is a giant, which hints at aliens. And again, the connection does hint at aliens, which I explained. All right, a couple more things here. This Game 5 with the giant sign that we were expecting is 17 days after this UFO sign. This was the day of the news story that came out in the mainstream media about how the Defense Department had a period of 17 days in a row of UFO sightings that they can't explain and tried their very best to hunt down and everything. They're saying they're drones, but they don't know. They can't figure it out. They can't find them. They don't know where they came from. They try to, anyway, read the story. But the point is that it's the big part of the story is how the UFOs were for 17 days. And this October 13th date was known, October 30th was known before October 13th. And it was known that October 13th is 17 days before October 30th. And so that's why it was amazing that we had a 17-day sign. And this is relevant regarding Paul Simon. And again, October 30th was originally thought to be the date it would be that Paul Simon would die. And so October 13th is amazing because this is Paul Simon's birthday. He was born exactly 83 years earlier, and 83 is the 23rd prime number. The mark of the Antichrist changes a person's 23 chromosomes. 2 divided by 3 is 0.666, and the Antichrist wore jersey number 23 in high school. And, of course, the Antichrist, Satan's representative, will be promoting the lie that aliens are real and they're visiting us, when in truth they are demons pretending to be aliens. And Aliens Day will be 222 days. Again, 45, the reciprocal of it is 0.222, or 0.0222. And the mark of the Antichrist is symbolized by the 22. There's one last connection, I think, here, this one. So this prophetic Game 6 day is exactly 666 days before the release of the movie Apocalypse Now, which of course hints at Apocalypse Now, which is again the timing of Carter and Simon's death. That's the prophetic purpose of it, to communicate the apocalypse now, beginning now. And Apocalypse Now infamously cost $45 million, way over budget. That's the big story about the movie, in fact. And exactly 45 years later were all of these signs, which is explained in other videos, including an Apocalypse Now sign, which is explained in other videos. Martin Sheen, the star of the movie Apocalypse Now, who famously cut his hand accidentally in a movie in the shoot and went with it, improvised with his real bloody hand after he cut it on a mirror, punching it, and then spread the blood all over him and all over the hotel room. That's real, and that's famous because it was a real cut hand and he went with it. Okay, and anyway, on this day, he shook hands with Joe Biden. But that's prophetic because Martin Sheen also played the president in The West Wing. And on and on and on. I won't explain it anymore. But it was the day of the 90-foot unveiling, 90-foot statue, the unveiling of the 90-foot statue in Harris County of the monkey man, Hanuman, the Indian god. And that's confirmation of the 9 times 9 days. But also, the movie cost $45 million, but $9 million of it was spent on promotion. And 45 is the 9th triangular number. So that makes all of this 9 times 9 days relevant. But as a second witness to even that, it's 11 weeks and 4 days to the date 11/4. The date it is predicted that Jimmy Carter will die. And Apocalypse Now connects to Jimmy Carter, and I've explained that in other videos so many other times, so that's enough. I just wanted to show you, though, how this Carter's inauguration and this World Series in '77 connects with 666 days to Apocalypse Now, which connects to now. And again, the death of Jimmy Carter is symbolic of Apocalypse Now because he's symbolic of Methuselah, whose name means when he dies, destruction. I do believe I have explained the entire video or diagram now. No, there's what? Whoa. A couple more things. This 48th All-Star game connects to this World Series. But this 48th All-Star game is 4 times 8 years to the day that Barack Obama threw out the first pitch at the All-Star game. Okay, so first of all, again, this 48th All-Star game, the prophetic significance of it was Rachel Robinson throwing the ceremonial first pitch. And again, that's backed up with a second witness with the relevance of ceremonial first pitches because of what I explained with this ceremonial first pitch of Joe DiMaggio. Okay, so Rachel Robinson, as in Michelle Robinson, threw out the first pitch in the 48th All-Star game 4 times 8 years before Obama threw out the first pitch. Okay, and Obama is predicted to become the 48th president. This was the 40th plus 40th All-Star game, which hits at the 44th president, Barack Obama. And the name Obama in simple English gematria, A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, is equal to 32, and 32 is 4 times 8. This All-Star game was in St. Louis, which is where Kamala Harris's plane is predicted to crash, which will lead to the rise of Barack Obama through her replacement. And she'll die in a baseball stadium, the same baseball stadium. Okay, and Obama threw the first pitch to player number 5 of the Los Angeles Angels, which hints at fallen angels, as in the 5th trumpet. The demons crossing over, coming from the bottomless pit in the 5th trumpet. Okay, now I could connect this on and on. I could talk to you for an hour with more connections. You know, the first All-Star game in St. Louis in '66, when and the ceremonial first. No. So the first All-Star game since '66, when the MVP was Brooks Robinson for the Baltimore Orioles, a bird, as in bird strike, and Michelle Robinson. But Brooks Robinson also wore number 5. Anyway, that's another story, Brooks Robinson. So let's just finish this one last thing because this is very important. Now, this game 6, again, 6 is 2 times 3, and 2 divided by 3 is 0.666. This game 6 was exactly 69 days, which is also 9 weeks and 6 days. And again, 6 divided by 9 is 0.666. This is 69 days is also 1,656 hours. And from Adam to Noah, before the flood, it is 1,656 years, according to Bible chronology. And so that gets us back to August 10th, 1977, which was the day that the son of Sam was arrested. Another name he had was the .44 caliber killer Now, I've already explained how Barack Obama is a murderer and will be a murderer and fulfilling the prophecy about the Antichrist being a slaughtering murderer. Okay? And he's the 44th president. And again, 77 is all about pointing to this prophecy of the series of 7 kings with the inauguration of Jimmy Carter. And by the way, this date, August 10th, 77, is 202 days, which ends at 22, the mark of the Antichrist. But it is also exactly 29 weeks. And if God were to symbolize 9/11 with only 2 numbers, it would be 29 or 92, as 2 is 1 plus 1, giving us an 11 and a 9. And Revelation 9:11 is King Apollyon and the verse that symbolizes the 5th trumpet, judgment, when demons come from the bottomless pit and promote the mark of the Antichrist. And that's the thing here. This son of Sam who terrorized New York City, that's why it's relevant, by the way. This was in the same summer of this 77 Yankees World Series year. And the All-Star game, this coincided with this son of Sam who terrorized New York City and mocked the police department and eluded them for many days. I forget how many days. He had 4 plus 4 shootings. The 44 caliber killer did 4 plus 4 shootings and killed 2 times 3 people, as in the game 2 times 3. Okay, which again, 23 pairs with 44, because the 44th president was the basketball president who wore 23. That's what God does to confirm his signs, pairs these 2 numbers together. It's so amazing, okay? So all of this is, now the thing is that mass shootings and shootings in God's signs are symbolic of the thing. Things that come out of guns and go into people are symbolic of the thing that comes out of things and goes into people. The SHOTs, right? That's the shootings are symbolic of the SHOTs in God's signs. That's why this is astounding. We have this Antichrist symbolism here, son of Sam, which obviously hints at Satan, and or rather the Antichrist, son of Satan, right? Not just Satan, but the son of Satan. It's amazing. Okay, so clearly, and that's why the 202, which is at 22 from the prophetic date here, because this is mark of the Antichrist symbolism, this sign. Now, there was a docudrama made about this summer in 1977. The story told through the 77 Yankees in a docudrama, but in the drama, which is 4 plus 4 episodes, by the way, it does mention, in the series, it is part of the plot is the son of Sam, which was 4 plus 4 shootings. Well, it's exactly 359 months from the arrest of the son of Sam to the docudrama named Bronx is Burning. And 359 is the 66 plus 6th prime number. 72 is also 2 times 6 times 6. And the Pope, the first Antichrist, is the 266th Pope. But this Bronx is Burning is also part of this story God is telling that points to the predicted dirty bombs and evacuation in Manhattan. On December 16th, 2024, I explained the connections already. What I have left to the end here, though, is that when the World Series was won on this day, the fans in New York City ran into the field. The whole field was swamped with fans, and Reggie Jackson, who was in the outfield, I believe playing center field, and it's interesting, another center field, I didn't even think of that. And he had to, for safety reasons, bowl over a couple of people as he was running at top speed to the dugout. In other words, was evacuating in a panic Yankee Stadium. This is total symbolism for the coming evacuation panic after the dirty bombs are predicted to explode in Manhattan. It's amazing. All right, a couple things I forgot to explain here. This 55 World Series was also between the New York Yankees and Los Angeles Dodgers. That's why it's relevant. 69 years, again, that's the prophetic amount of time in the most central prophecy in the Bible, and it regards the period of the end and the Antichrist. And again, 55 is because the most evil king, which is symbolic of the Antichrist in Israel's history, ruled for 55 years. And Kamala Harris will die next to the I-55 in the baseball stadium and on and on. But the thing, too, about this World Series, and God uses firsts for prophetic signs, is that this was the first televised World Series. Sorry, not first televised in color. All right? And Jackie Robinson played in this World Series. This was the first World Series that this was the first World Series that the Dodgers won. First ever World Series that the Dodgers won. They played the Yankees. Okay, this is the Yankees-Dodgers rivalry. The first of the World Series that they won was the first one to be televised in color, and the first colored player in baseball was Jackie Robinson. And that gets us back to the 47 World Series, which was 4 + 4 years earlier, which hints at the first black president. The 47 World Series was the first televised World Series, and it was the first racially integrated World Series with Jackie Robinson in his first year. So the first colored player played in the first televised World Series, 4 + 4, as in the 44th president, first black president, years before the first colored World Series televised in color in 55. And again, this connects on to, with 69 more years, to this current World Series. So that's why that's all amazing right here. All right, to close this video, we need to talk about Barack Obama on the pitching mound. So in God's signs, pitchers on the pitching mound are symbolic of the Antichrist on the Temple Mount. In ancient Israel, the Jews would conduct a religious ritual on the Temple Mount on the Day of Atonement involving 2 goats, hence the 2 Antichrist goats. In other words, it's symbolism. And the word in Hebrew that's used to talk about the taking away of sin and putting it on the scapegoat is jada. And this word means to throw away sin, which is astounding because this was learned a long time after it was learned that pitchers on the pitching mound symbolize the Antichrist in the Temple Mount, who, by the way, will be vanquished on the Day of Atonement in 2025 by the return of Lord Jesus Christ. But pitchers pitch, they throw away the ball, which is symbolic of the throwing away of sin. So anyway, Barack Obama, the Antichrist, threw out the ceremonial first pitch at this All-Star game, as I mentioned. But this wasn't the first time he had done a ceremonial first pitch at a Major League Baseball game. The first time he did this was as a senator in 2005, his first year as a senator. This was in Game 2 of the playoffs for the Chicago White Sox, who went on to win their first World Series since 1919, the year of the 1919 World Series cheating scandal by the Chicago Black Sox. This day that he pitched was exactly 1,091 months after the first commissioner of baseball took power. On this day, November 12th, 1920, I talked about this first commissioner of baseball in this video. And this day was 666 days after the ratification of the 6+6+6th Amendment, which restricted the buying and selling of alcohol, which is symbolism for the coming restriction of buying and selling food that will be rationed by the Antichrist and the Antichrist system to only those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist. Again, the mark of the Antichrist is leading to mass demonic possession, as described in the fifth trumpet, and will be facilitated by 5G frequencies. Again, this video is about the prediction that something is going to happen regarding this Aaron Judge, which hints at Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis, the New York Yankee, in Game 5. And this will point to the 5 home runs of Reggie Jackson, a New York Yankee, against the fallen angels, Los Angeles Dodgers, in '77, which again connects to the first commissioner of baseball. Now, this 1,091 months exact connection between the giving of unchecked power over every person in baseball to this game that Obama pitched hints at 9/11, but not just 9/11, in which there were 4 planes, one of them that crashed into Pennsylvania, killed 44 people, as in the 44th president, but also Revelation 9:11, the verse that symbolizes the 5th trumpet judgment and mass demonic possession. This game that he pitched ended up becoming the most controversial game in Major League Baseball playoff history. The game should have been won by Los Angeles. Pitcher number 45 was robbed, which hinted at the shoplifted referendum from the 45th president. Long story, I've explained this in another video, but I could go into the details, but it's not necessary. The game should have been won, and the umpire made the wrong call. Even the catcher, so the ball didn't bounce in the dirt, but the umpire thought it did. And because it didn't bounce in the dirt, it was an out, but the umpire thought it bounced in the dirt, so that allowed the batter, who actually struck out, to get to first base. And then, long story short, the White Sox won the game with a prophetic hit, a walk-off double by a guy named Creed, which is at the creed of the gospel. And what was his number? His name was Creedy, but it's spelled Creed. Oh yes, his number was 24, and that hinted at 2024 in this World Series. The final year before the 8th and last year of the Judgment Destruction. So anyway, this game, let's see. The White Sox went on to win the World Series, their first win since 1919, and they broke the supposed sports curse, which is symbolism for the curse of the Antichrist. The 3 teams with the sports curses in baseball, the Chicago White Sox, the Boston Red Sox, and the Chicago Cubs, also known as the Blue Bears, gives us red, white, and blue. And that is because of the Antichrist curse over America, red, white, and blue. The curses ended with the visit of the Chicago Cubs 4 days before Obama left office, and star player number 44 gave Obama jersey number 44, for the Chicago Cubs. Okay. And all of those sports curses were broken while Obama was in Washington, D.C., in power. Okay, so this is, and the MVP of the 2005 World Series of the Chicago White Sox was player number 23. And that's because Barack Obama wore number 23 in basketball in high school, and also Michael Jordan, who played for Chicago, the GOAT, greatest of all time, which hints at the GOAT Antichrist, he also wore 23, and on, actually. And this is also because the only president to serve non-consecutive terms skipped the 23rd presidency, just like Barack Obama will serve non-consecutive terms. Which gets me back to what I was saying. Barack Obama will become the 48th president, predicted to be on January 12th, 2025, when Michelle Robinson will step down. That date, January 12th, 2025, is exactly 19 years and 3 months after this prophetic game here. The most controversial game, just like which by the way hints at the shoplifted referendums. And of course also him not being eligible to be president because he wasn't born in America. In other words, shoplifting. Okay? In other words, the 1919 cheating scandal by the Chicago Black Sox. That day was October 12th, 2005, and the exact connection is 19 years and exactly 3 months. And the number 193 is the 44th prime number.
All right, a couple more things here. One very important thing that's obvious and was overlooked is that this pointing to the year 77 and this 7 times 7 years, for example, to the 3 home runs that Babe Ruth hit in the World Series in 28. And 28 is again 4 times 7, which should have been written in brackets here next to it. Hence, confirmation for the 47 years and the 4 times 7 days to the predicted death of Kamala Harris in a plane crash. And Kamala Harris is the acting 7 times 7th vice president. She's the 49th vice president, the acting 49th vice president, and 49 is 7 times 7. Okay? That's amazing too. Again, the 7 times 7 years connection right here to the year 4 times 7, 28, along with this World Series in 77, connecting with 47 years and 4 times 7 days. That's amazing. Also, her flight will mirror the flight 77 on 9/11. On 9/11, flight 77 was hijacked. It was a flight that was on its way from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles. And we are talking about the World Series between the New York Yankees on the East Coast and Los Angeles. She will be flying back to her $5 million mansion near the I-5 highway in Los Angeles. Flight 77 was hijacked and then flown into the Pentagon. Pentagon means 5 sides. It means, in other words, it hints at the number 5. Flight 77 flew into the building named after the number 5. And Kamala Harris's flight path will be the exact same flight path. And in the middle of the flight, just like Flight 77 on 9/11, it will crash. Flight 77 on 9/11 was intentionally designed by God to point to the 7 times 7th vice president and her flight to her $5 million mansion. Okay. Another thing. The Son of Sam arrest, the 44 caliber killer arrest who did 4+4 shootings, this connection here to Jimmy Carter's inauguration is also 55% of a calendar year. That's very relevant because, again, it is the 5th trumpet we are talking about here when demons will come from the bottomless pit and there will be a mass demonic possession that will be triggered by 5G frequencies. Also, Kamala Harris, her fall from the sky will be symbolic of fallen angels, and she will crash in St. Louis, one reason being the I-55 highway that connects to Memphis and also Chicago, the home of the Antichrist, and Memphis and the king's mansion is symbolic of the king's palace in Egypt, which is symbolism for the Antichrist. And so this connection of 55% of a year is extremely relevant. Furthermore, as it has now been shown, all of this also points to Barack Obama, the pitcher on the pitching mound, symbolic of the Antichrist on the Temple Mount in Bible prophecy, who wore jersey number 5. Okay, and that's why this 55% of a year connects to the 44 caliber killer, as in the 44th president killer, and his 4+4 shootings. Also, another name. They had 3 names in the media: Son of Sam, 44 caliber killer, and also Mr. Monster. And that's also extremely relevant, especially given this 55% of a year connection. Again, it is also 202 days, which also hints at 22, and that, again, is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist. But the mark of the Antichrist will facilitate the mass demonic possession through the 5G frequencies that are alluded to in the 5th trumpet. And the mass demonic possession will turn people into monsters. That is what is coming, and that is why the name of this Son of Sam is also Mr. Monster. We are talking about this connection. By the way, this 222 days is also similar to the 202 days right here. And this gets us to the symbolic beginning of the mass demonic possession. I'm not saying that everyone will become demonically possessed on this day, but there will be a symbolic beginning to whatever is coming. Demons pretending to be aliens, for example. Probably that will be the symbolic beginning, them being in the news. And so that's why this is important too, this connection to Mr. Monster with this 55% of a year connection. Because it is the 5G frequencies that will turn people into monsters through demonic possession. Again, the phrase regarding Satan, prince of the power of the air, is symbolic of what we are talking about here with the frequencies in the air, the 5G frequencies, and Paul Simon's music. Music is frequencies in the air, and Paul Simon is associated with the number 5, as has been explained. If not explained enough in this video, it is explained in other videos. And again, he traveled down the I-55 highway to the king's mansion, and his name, Paul Simon, equals 500 in Hebrew gematria, and 500, the 500th word in Strong's Greek Concordance, used 5 times in the Bible, is Antichrist, and the king's palace in Egypt is what is symbolized with the king's mansion in Graceland, and Paul Simon traveled down the I-55 to get there, and the first lyric of his song is about him traveling down the I-55, and he said in the song, the Mississippi Delta was shining like a national guitar. Delta brainwaves are what will facilitate the mass demonic possession that will be triggered by the 5G frequencies. And Paul Simon dated Shelley Duvall and broke up with her at the airport, as in portals for demons to cross over into the earthly realm, before she flew to the UK and that would be the United Kingdom, as in Satan's kingdom, to film the movie The Shining, which is about demonic possession and is also mansion symbolism, and so is Paul Simon. For example, his travel to the Graceland mansion. Because in the movie The Shining, it is the hotel that is haunted and demonically possessed. Well, the hotel is haunted, and this is part of the reason for the demonic possession of Jack Nicholas in the movie, for example. I mean, Jack Nicholson. And incidentally, this is another example of God using a name, Nick, to hint at the Nicolaitan doctrine. And the Nicolaitans, not just the doctrine, but the Nicolaitans, the sycophant followers of the pastors and priests. And this, in other words, is extremely important. So coming full circle here, it can't be stressed enough. The main theme of God's big picture of end times warning signs is warning of judgment for the church, the so-called quote-unquote Christians. That is the main theme, and that's why Jack Nicholson. Make sure you watch the 23 church signs video on this channel. And a reminder again is that in God's signs, mass shootings or shootings in general, doesn't have to be a mass shooting, are symbolic of the things that come out of guns and go into people are symbolic of the things that come out of things and go into people, the SHOTs, right? And that's why this is astounding here, that we have this 55% of a year connection to Mr. Monster, who was responsible for 4+4 shootings and is also known as the 44 caliber killer. We are talking about the 44th president, Antichrist, enforcing the mark of the Antichrist, which will turn people, or is turning people, into monsters. And again, Barack Obama arrived in Washington, D.C. in 2005, and he was the pitcher on the pitching mound, the ceremonial first pitch, which is what is pointed to here in 1977 with the first pitch in the All-Star game, and again, as I explained, the first pitch in this final game of the World Series by player number 5, Joe DiMaggio. Barack Obama was the pitcher on the pitching mound, symbolic of the Antichrist on the Temple Mount in Bible prophecy, and he wore jersey number 5. And a reminder, again, all of this 1977 prophetic signs that connect with each other here gets us to the movie Star Wars, which is about aliens, which are in reality, when they come, demons pretending to be aliens, alluded to in the 5th trumpet, when the demons, the fallen angels, as in Los Angeles, come from the bottomless pit. And this Star Wars game connects with 50, the 50th semi-prime number, to Reggie Jackson's 5 home runs and the ceremonial first pitch by player number 5. And it is 5 times 5 times 5 days exactly after the inauguration of Jimmy Carter, who begins this parallel with the prophecy in the Bible regarding, that is pointing to the identity of the Antichrist, the 8th of the 5th through 8th kings, which is why Carter's inauguration connects with the 58th prime number to these 5s in this World Series game. Reggie Jackson's 5 home runs, and the first ceremonial pitch not from the commissioner's box by player number 5.
Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, TrumpPrediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the BitChute.com or the Odyssey.com channel. And do it now in case you aren't able to later.